Preamble. Ethics is at the core of every discipline. The Universal Declaration of Ethical Principles for Psychology speaks to the common moral framework that guides and inspires psychologists worldwide toward the highest ethical ideals in their professional and scientific work. Psychologists recognize that they carry out their activities within a large social context. They recognize that the lives and identities of human beings, both individually and collectively, are connected across generations, and that there is a reciprocal relationship between human beings and their natural and social environments. Psychologists are committed to placing the welfare of society and its members above the self interest of the discipline and its members. They recognize that adherence to ethical principles in the context of their work contributes to a stable society that enhances the equality of life for all human beings. The objectives of the Universal Declaration are to provide a moral framework and generic set of ethical principles for psychology organizations worldwide. A. To evaluate the ethical and moral relevance of their codes of ethics. B. To use as a template to guide the development or evolution of their codes of ethics. C. To encourage global thinking about ethics while also encouraging action that is sensitive and responsive to local needs and values. And D. To speak with a collective voice on matters of ethical concern. The Universal Declaration describes those ethical principles that are based on shared human values. It reaffirms the commitment of the psychology community to help build a better world where peace, freedom, responsibility, justice, humanity, and morality prevail. The description of each principle is followed by the presentation of a list of values that are related to the principle. This list of values highlight ethical concepts that are valuable for promoting each ethical principle. The Universal Declaration articulates principles and related values that are general and aspirational rather than say specific and prescriptive. Application of the principles and values to the development of specific standards of conduct will vary across cultures and must occur locally or regionally in order to ensure their relevance to local or regional cultures, customs, beliefs, and laws. The significance of the Universal Declaration depends on its recognition and promotion by psychology organizations at national, regional, and international levels. Every psychology organization is encouraged to keep this declaration in mind and through teaching, education, and other measures to promote respect for and observance of the declaration's principles and related values in the various activities of its members. Principle 1. Respect for the dignity of persons and people. Respect for the dignity of persons is the most fundamental and universally found ethical principle across geographical and cultural boundaries and across professional disciplines. It provides the philosophical foundation for many of the other ethical principles put forward by professions. Respect for dignity recognizes the inherent worth of all human beings regardless of perceived or real differences in social status, ethnic origin, gender, capacities, or other such characteristics. This inherent worth means that all human beings are worthy of equal moral consideration. Principle 3. Integrity. Integrity is vital to the advancement of scientific knowledge and to the maintenance of public confidence in the discipline of psychology. Integrity is based on honesty and on truthful, open, and accurate communications. It includes recognizing, monitoring, and managing potential biases, multiple relationships, and other conflicts of interest that could result in harm and exploitation of persons or peoples. Complete openness and disclosure of information must be balanced with other ethical considerations, including the need to protect the safety or confidentiality of persons and people, and the need to respect cultural expectations. Cultural differences exist regarding appropriate professional boundaries, multiple relationships, and conflicts of interest. However, regardless of such differences, monitoring and management are needed to ensure that self-interest does not interfere with acting in the best interest of persons and people. Therefore, psychologists accept as fundamental the principle of integrity. In so doing, they accept the following related values: A. Honesty and truthful, open, and accurate communications. B. Avoiding incomplete disclosure of information unless complete disclosure is culturally inappropriate or violates confidentiality or carries the potential to do serious harm to individuals, families, groups, or communities. C. Maximizing impartiality and minimizing biases. D. Not exploiting persons or peoples for personal, professional, or financial gain. E. Avoiding conflicts of interest and declaring them when they cannot be avoided or are inappropriate to avoid. Principle 4. Professional and scientific responsibilities to society. Psychology functions as a discipline within the context of human society, as a science and a profession. It has responsibilities to society. These responsibilities include contributing to the knowledge about human behavior and the person's understanding of themselves and others, and using such knowledge to improve the condition of individuals, families, groups, communities, and society. They also include conducting its affairs within society in accordance with the highest ethical standards and encouraging the development of social structures and policies that benefit all persons and peoples. Differences exist in the way these responsibilities are interpreted by psychologists in different cultures. However, they need to be considered in a way that is culturally appropriate and consistent with the ethical principles and related values of this declaration. Therefore, psychologists accept as fundamental the principle of professional and scientific responsibilities to society. In so doing, they accept the following related values: A. The discipline's responsibility to increase scientific and professional knowledge in ways that allow the promotion of the well-being of society and all its members. B. The discipline's responsibility to use psychological knowledge for beneficial purposes and to protect such knowledge from being misused, used incompetently, or made useless. C. The discipline's responsibility to conduct its affairs in ways that are ethical and consistent with the promotion of the well-being of society and all its members. D. The discipline's responsibility to promote the highest ethical ideals in the scientific, professional, and educational activities of its members. E. The discipline's responsibility to adequately train its members on their ethical responsibilities and required competencies. F. The discipline's responsibility to develop its ethical awareness and sensitivity and to be as self-correcting as possible. General ethical standards and procedures. We subscribe to the following general ethical standards and procedure as we conduct ourselves in the various aspects of our professional and scholarly activities as psychologists. These general standards and procedures refer to: first, how we resolve ethical issues in our professional lives and communities. 2. How we adhere to the highest standards of professional competence. 3. How we respect for the rights and dignity of our clients, our peers, our students, and our other stakeholders in the profession and scientific discipline. 4. How we maintain confidentiality in the important aspects of our professional and scholarly functions. 5. How we ensure truthfulness and accuracy in all our public statement. And 6. How we observe professionalism in our records and fees. 1. Resolving ethical issues. 1. Misuse of psychologists' works. In instances where misuse or misrepresentation of our work comes to our attention, we take appropriate and reasonable steps to correct or minimize the effects of such misuse or misrepresentation. 2. Conflicts between ethics and law, regulations, or other governing legal authority. In instances where our code of ethics conflicts with the law, regulations, or governing legal authority, our first step is to take appropriate actions to resolve the conflicts while being committed to our code of ethics. However, if the conflicts cannot be resolved by such means, we adhere to the law, regulations, or governing authority. Conflicts between ethics and organizational demands. In instances where our code of ethics conflicts with organizational demands, we make our code of ethics known to the organization. We also declare our commitment and adherence to this code when resolving the conflicts. 10. Research. Rights and dignity of participants. 1. In all aspects, we respect the rights, safeguard the dignity, and protect and promote the welfare of research participants. 2. Before beginning any research work in a community not our own or not familiar to us, we obtain essential information about their mores, culture, social structure, customs, and traditions. 3. We respect and abide by their cultural expectations, provided that these does not contravene any of the ethical principles of this code of ethics. 4. We respect the rights of research participants should they wish to discontinue their participation at any time. We are responsive all throughout the research to participants' nonverbal indications of a desire to withdraw from participation, especially if the person has difficulty with verbal communication, is a young child, or is culturally unlikely to communicate. 5. We do not contribute nor engage in research which contravenes international humanitarian law, such as development of methods intended to torture persons, development of prohibited weapons, or destruction of the environment. 6. It is our duty to ask participants about any factors that could bring forth potential harm, such as pre-existing medical conditions, and to detect, remove, or correct any foreseeable undesirable consequences prior to research proper. 7. To ensure that participants' rights are protected, we seek independent and sufficient ethical review of the possible risk our research may pose to them. B. Informed consent to research. 1. We do not just ask participants to sign in the consent form. We recognize that informed consent happens due to the willingness of the participants to work collaboratively with us. 2. We make sure that the consent form is translated in language or dialect that the participants understand. We will take reasonable measures to guarantee that the information was understood. 3. When we conduct research with persons below 18 years of age, we obtain informed assent from them and informed consent from their parents or legal guardian. 4. When we conduct research with adult participants who have difficulties in comprehension or communication, we obtain informed consent from adult family members of the participants and approval from independent advisors. 5. When we conduct research with detained persons, we pay attention to special circumstances which could affect the latter's ability to give informed consent. 6. When obtaining informed consent as required in Section 3.j of this Code of Ethics, it is our duty to inform research participants about A. The purpose of research, expected duration, and procedures. B. Mutual responsibilities. C. Their right to decline to participate and to withdraw from the research once participation has begun. D. The foreseeable consequences of declining or withdrawing. E. Reasonably foreseeable factors that may be expected to influence their willingness to participate, such as potential risk, discomfort, or adverse effects. F. How to rescind consent if desired. G. Any prospective research benefits. H. Protections and limits of confidentiality and/or anonymity. I. Incentives for participation. And J. Whom to contact for questions about the research and research participants' rights. We shall provide an opportunity for prospective participants to ask questions and receive answers. 7. When conducting intervention research using experimental treatments, it is our duty to clarify the participants at the beginning of the research the following: A. Experimental nature of the treatment. B. Services that will or will not be available to the control group or groups if appropriate. C. Means by which assignment to treatment and control groups will be made. D. Available treatment alternatives if an individual does not wish to participate in the research or wishes to withdraw once a study has begun. And E. Compensation for or monetary cost of participating, and if appropriate, including whether reimbursement from the participant or a third-party payer will be sought. 8. In longitudinal research, we may need to obtain informed consent on more than one occasion. C. Informed consent for recording voices and images in research. 1. It is our duty to obtain informed consent from research participants before recording their voices or images for data collection. Except 1A, the research consists only of naturalistic observations in public places, and it is not anticipated that the recording will be used in a manner that could cause personal identification or harm. And B, the research design includes deception, and consent for the use of the recording is obtained during debriefing. PAP Code of Ethics, page 25. The research participation of clients, students, and subordinates. 1. When we conduct research with our clients, students, or subordinates, we do not coerce them to participate. Rather, we inform them about their right not to participate, and we do not reprimand or penalize them for doing so. 2. When research participation is a course requirement or an opportunity for extra credit, we inform our clients, students, or subordinates about equitable alternative activities that could fulfill their educational or employment goals. E. Dispensing with informed consent for research. 1. We may dispense informed consent only on the following conditions. A. When we believe that the research would not distress or create harm to participants or general welfare, or when our study involves, first, the study of normal, not of, or normal educational practices, curricula, or classroom management methods conducted in educational settings. 2. Only anonymous questionnaires, naturalistic behaviors, or archival research for which disclosure of responses would not place participants at risk of criminal or civil liability or damage their financial standing, employability, or reputation, and confidentiality is protected. 3. The study of factors related to job or organization effectiveness conducted in organizational settings which would not affect the participants' employability and confidentiality is protected. Or B. When it is mandated by law or is an institutional regulation. F. Offering inducements for research participation. 1. We may fairly compensate participants for the use of their time, energy, and knowledge unless such compensation is refused in advance. 2. We make reasonable efforts not to offer undue, excessive, or inappropriate reward, financial, or other inducements for research participation which could likely pressure or coerce participation. 3. When we offer psychological and professional services as an incentive for research participation, it is our duty to clarify the nature of the services, including the risk, obligation, and limitations. G. Deception in research. 1. We refrain from conducting research involving deception, except A. when we have determined that the use of deceptive techniques is justified by the study's significant prospective scientific, educational, medical, or applied value, and B. when effective non-deceptive alternative procedures are not possible. 2. We do not deceive prospective research participants about our study that is reasonably expected to interfere their decision to give informed consent. We ensure that the level of risk, discomfort, or inconvenience that could cause physical pain or severe emotional distress is not withheld from the participants. 3. It is our duty to explain any deception as an integral feature of design and conduct of an experiment to those who participated in research as soon as possible, preferably at the end of their participation, but not later than the end of data gathering. H. Debriefing. 1. We debrief by informing the participants that they have contributed to the body of knowledge, and we make sure that they have also learned from their participation. 2. We give participants an opportunity to obtain the nature, results, and conclusions of the research. We also take reasonable steps to correct any misconceptions participants have about our research, especially when the participants were led to believe that the research has a different purpose. 3. When participants' trust may have been lost due to incomplete disclosure or temporarily leading participants to believe that the research had a different purpose, we seek to re-establish trust and assure them that the research procedures were carefully structured and necessary for scientifically valid findings. 4. If scientific or humane values justify delaying or withholding this information, we take reasonable measures to reduce the risk of harm. 5. When we become aware that our research procedures have harmed a participant, we act to correct and minimize the harm. 6. If after debriefing, the participants decided to withdraw their data, we shall respect and grant their request. The participants have the right to appeal that their own data, including recordings, be destroyed. Observational research. We respect the privacy and psychological well-being of persons studied based on observational research. This method is acceptable only when those being observed would expect to be observed by strangers. J. Humane care and the use of animals in research. 1. We do not use animals in research except when there is a sufficient reason to say that it is the only way to A. Further increase understanding of the structures and processes underlying human or animal behavior. B. Increase understanding of the specific species used in the study, or C. Eventually augment benefits to the health and welfare of humans or other animals. 2. We comply with current laws, regulations, and professional standards when we acquire, care for, use, and dispose animals used in research. 3. We take reasonable steps to ensure that animals used in research are treated humanely and are not exposed to unnecessary discomfort, pain, or disruption. If possible, a psychologist trained in research methods and experienced in care of laboratory animals shall supervise all procedures in researches of this kind. 4. We make sure that all individuals under our supervision have received clear instructions and guidelines in research methods and in care, maintenance, and handling of animals or specific species being used to the extent that is appropriate to their role. 5. We use a procedure causing pain, stress, and privation to animals only when A. An alternative procedure is unavailable, B. The goal is justified by its prospective scientific, educational, or applied value, and C. We make reasonable efforts to minimize the discomfort, infection, illness, and pain of animal subjects. 6. We perform surgical procedures with appropriate anesthesia, and we follow techniques to avoid infection and minimize the pain during and after surgery. 7. Only when it is appropriate that an animal's life be terminated, then we proceed rapidly with an effort to minimize pain and in accordance with accepted procedures. K. Reporting research results. 1. Whenever feasible and appropriate, we consult with groups, organizations, or communities being studied the findings of our research, so as to increase the accuracy of interpretation and to minimize the risk of misunderstanding, misinterpretation, or misuse. 2. We are cautious when reporting results of our research regarding vulnerable groups or communities, and we ensure that the results will not be misinterpreted or misused in the development of social policy, attitude, and practices. 3. In research involving children, we are cautious when discussing the results with parents, legal guardians, or teachers, and we make sure that there is no misinterpretation or misunderstanding. 4. We do not fabricate data. 5. If we discover significant errors in our published data, we act quickly to correct such errors in a correction, retraction, erratum, and other appropriate publication means. 11. Plagiarism. We do not present any portions of others' work or data as our own, even if the source is cited occasionally. M. Publication credit. 1. We take responsibility and credit only for work we have actually done and credit others, including students and research assistants, for work they have actually performed or to which they have substantially contributed. 2. We ensure that principal authorship and co-authorship accurately reflect the relative scientific or professional contributions of the individuals involved, regardless of their relative status. Mere possession of an institutional position, such as department chair or head of the research unit, does not justify authorship credit. Minor contributions to the research or to the writing for publications must be acknowledged appropriately, such as in footnotes or an introductory statement. 3. We do not claim credit or authorship in a publication that is substantially based on our student's thesis or dissertation if we do not have substantial contributions to the research beyond our regular duties as thesis or dissertation mentor or advisor. As faculty advisors, we should discuss with students publication credit at the outset and throughout the research and publication process based on our relative contributions to the research work. 4. In a multiple authored article that is partly and or substantially based on the student's thesis or dissertation, we shall give appropriate publication credit to the student based on the student's contribution relative to the other authors. When the article is mainly based on the student's thesis or dissertation, we credit the student with primary authorship. And duplicate publication of data. We do not publish data that have been previously published and claim them as original data. However, this does not prohibit republishing of data as long as proper acknowledgement is clearly stated. Sharing research data for verification. It is our duty to share and not to withhold our data to other competent professionals who seek to verify and reanalyze the research results and substantive claims of our publication, provided that 1. The latter obtain prior written agreement for the use of data. 2. The latter intend to use the data solely for the purpose declared. 3. The latter will hold responsibility for cost associated with the release of data. And 4. Confidentiality of participants can be protected. Unless legal rights concerning proprietary data preclude such release, then the latter should seek permission from the concerned institution, organization, or agency. P. Reviewers. When we review material submitted for presentation, publication grant, or research proposal review, we respect the confidentiality and the proprietary rights of this who submitted it. Q. Limitations of the study. 1. We acknowledge the limitations of our knowledge, methods, findings, interventions, interpretations, and conclusions. 2. In cases wherein our research touches on social policies and structures of communities which we do not belong, we thoroughly discuss the limits of our data with respect to their social policy. 3. We do not conceal disconfirming evidence about our findings and views, and we acknowledge alternative hypotheses and explanations. Assumptions about psychological testing and assessment. Psychological traits and states exist. These can be quantified and measured. Test behavior predicts non-test behavior. Tests have strengths and weaknesses. Sources of error are part of the process. Testing and assessment can be done in a fair and unbiased way. Testing and assessment benefit society. Assumption 1. Psychological traits and states exist. Trait is any distinguishable or relatively enduring way in which one individual varies from one another. State distinguishes one person from another but relatively less enduring. Assumption 2. Psychological traits and states can be quantified and measured. Item content is the key to insight. Assumption 3. Test behavior predicts non-test behavior. Post-dict, F, and predict. Assumption 4. Tests and other measurements have strengths and weaknesses. Competent test users understands the limitations of the test. Assumption 5. Sources of error are part of the assessment process. Error. Long-standing assumption that factors other than what a test attempts to measure will influence performance on the test. Error variance refers to the component of test score attributable to sources other than the trait or ability measured. Assumption 6. Testing and assessment can be done in a fair and unbiased way. Tests are tools. Assumption 7. Testing and assessment benefit society. Consider the many critical decisions that are based on testing and assessment procedure. Reliability is the stability or consistency of the measurement. Includes the notion that each individual measurement has an element of error such as observer's error, environmental changes, participants' changes, etc. Test of reliability coefficient alpha. Reliability coefficient. It should not go beyond positive negative 1. Test scores gain reliability as the number of items increases. The higher the coefficient alpha, the higher the reliability, or the other way around. Reliability. Reliable means dependable, also synonymous with consistency or stability. Reliable test defined as one on which test takers will fall into the same positions relative to each other. Understanding scores. What is an IQ score? IQ scores reflect the general capacity for performing intellectual tasks such as solving verbal and mathematical problems. The average IQ score is 100. The standard deviation of IQ score is 15. Making sense of your score. If the average IQ score is 100 and standard deviation is 15, it means that 50% of the people have a IQ score between 90 to 100. 2.5% of the people are very superior in intelligence over 130. 2.5% of the people are mentally deficient, impaired, retarded under 70. 0.5% of people are near genius over 140. Normal distribution and IQ scores. The properties of normal distribution apply to IQ scores. 50% of IQ scores fall between 90 to 110. 70% of IQ scores fall between 85 to 115. 95% of IQ scores fall between 70 to 130. 99.5% of IQ scores fall between 60 to 140. Low IQ and mental retardation. 5% of people have IQ under 70, and this is generally considered as the benchmark for intellectual deficiency. This is a condition of limited mental ability in that it produces difficulty in adapting to the demands of life. 4 levels of mental retardation: 50 to 70 below average, 40 to 35 mild mental retardation, 35 to 30 moderate mental retardation, 20 to 35 severe mental retardation, less than 20 profound mental retardation. Why intelligent people fail. Intelligence tests tell so little about the performance in everyday life and suggest a number of reasons why so-called intelligent people fail. Sternberg, 1986. Measuring intelligence. Intelligence testing entails sampling an examinee's performance on different types of tests and tasks as a function of developmental level. This provides a standardized situation form which the examinee's approach to the various tasks can be closely observed. Tasks used in intelligence test. Infants rely to a great degree on information obtained from a structured interview with the examinee's parents, more on sensory motor tasks. Older children shifts verbal and performance abilities. Tasks were designed to yield measure of the general information, vocabulary, social judgments, and the other. Adults, usually for clinical use, career, or vocational placement. The concept of mental age. Mental age is an index that refers to the chronological age equivalent of one's performance on a test or subtest. This index is typically derived by reference norms that indicate age at which most test takers are able to pass to otherwise meet some criterion of performance. Issues in intelligence test, nature versus nature. Per Preformation versus predeterminism. Preformationism. All living are performed at birth. All organism structure, including intelligence, are preformed at birth and therefore cannot be improved. Predeterminism. One's abilities are predetermined by genetic inheritance and that no amount of learning or other intervention can enhance what has been genetically encoded to unfold in time. Inheritance versus interactionism. Inheritance. People inherit certain intellectual potential. Interactionism. People inherit certain intellectual potential. Exactly how much of the genetic potential is realized depends partially on the type of environment in which it was nurtured. We are free who we want to be, using the environment to push our genetic potential to the limit. Stability of intelligence. Stable for much of one's adult life. May start to decline at the age of 75, but recent studies show that can start to decline as early as 20s and 30s. Gifted children tend to maintain their intellectual superiority, but some tend not to succeed. Issues in intelligence test. Flynn effect. Who is Flynn? James R. Flynn authored the article The Means IQ of O.D. American. Massive gains from 1932 to 1978. He noticed that intelligence seems to rise on average year by year starting in the year which the test was normed. Issues in intelligence test. Personality. The concept of street efficacy. Streetwise is a person who knows his or her way on the street. The formal term street efficacy refers to the perceived ability to avoid violent confrontation and to be safe in one's neighborhood. Theorists and researchers believe that this concept lies in the crossroads of intelligence and personality, if not firmly within the bounds of each. Issues in intelligence test. Gender. Man versus woman. Some differences have been found consistently between IQ scores of men and women, but exact significance remains debatable. Men tends to perform better in tests that measures G and visual spatialization, use of a separate gender and age norms when clinically assessing. Issue in intelligence test. Family environment. Family environment intelligence. Children who thrives in a loving and secured family environment tends to do well in terms of intelligence because their environment gives opportunities for learning and growth. Maternal effect may successfully integrate the family effect model. Some researchers believes that the family environment begins inside a mother's womb. Issues in intelligence test. Culture. Culture fair or biased. Items on an intelligence test tend to reflect the culture of the society where the test was employed. The rise of culture fair test began with the need to develop tests where the effects of culture can be controlled in the assessment of intelligence. The concept of culture loading. Culture loading is defined as the extent to which a test has incorporated the vocabulary, concepts, traditions, knowledge, and feelings associated with a particular culture. Culture fair tests were designed to minimize the effects of culture loading. Group versus individual. Individual. One subjective tested at a time. Examiner records the response. Scoring requires flexibility, can elicit maximum performance if permitted by standardization. Provides information beyond the test score. Allow the examiner to observe behavior in standard setting. All individual interpretation of test scores. Group. Many subjects are tested at a time. Subjects record their own responses. Scoring is straightforward and objective. There are no safeguards.